Yeah, just to make myself true, I betrayed somebody who is not here, who will arrive a visit, Biliana. When we had lots of meetings online to discuss the program, whatever. I wasn't sure whether I had I have two current interests. One way of imagining, starting with the logic of radicality, I do believe that being an academic, I should always, and I try as much as I can, put together what I teach and what I research. So this logic that, I can use the class, enjoy the class. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. It's to make sure that whenever or whatever I teach is also part of what I really care. I care for teaching very much, but in terms of something really relevant to me at the moment. So I wasn't sure. Liliana decided for what I'm not telling you today. At one point when I heard that Liana will arrive later, I said, maybe I'll change. But that doesn't mean that the examples, the examples I gave in the title, the reason why Biliana was so sure that I had to do what I'm not going to do was that I am teaching three novels, and I do sincerely propose the class to keep in mind that whenever, whatever, you should probably go and read these three novels. Out of pleasure, they are very beautifully written. One is, I'm sorry because I wrote them in Italian. I teach them in English, it doesn't matter. I had to work for a feminist presentation. So in Italy, and I decided to buy the Italian versions. One is called The Shadow King by a woman who, when she published this novel, was somehow ignored. And now, because what is good is good, now they are inviting her in Italy many times in different, she also opened the new course in gender studies at Siena of Pisa, giving a wonderful talk, which was again then instead of having she was giving it in English, but they used the translator voice on top of her voice. This is a very bad example of Italian fascism today, even with the best feelings. No, they wanted to make people who don't understand English, but then we could not hear her voice. Terrible. But anyway, she's an Ethiopian woman. She lives in the States. The Shadow King is one of the one of the very few rewritings of the Ethiopian resistance against the Italian colonial enterprise. Really, you won't find many. This one is a fantastic and beautifully written. She worked very, very hard in the archive. She spent much time in Italy. She was helped by all the Africanists of the world, but also the very important professors who once used to teach at the Orientale, having really kind of international recognition. Now things are not as good as they used to be. I'm not nostalgic, but still. But anyway, this woman was presenting in the south of Italy a previous novel in a little bookshop. She was approached by a man who very emotionally said, I need to speak to you. My father was a fascist, going to Ethiopia to kill the kids, to use for the first time gas on civil population. I need to apologize. So she did not know exactly what to reply. She did not know also the other people were so much interested in the novel. But the woman was waiting for her outside. He gave her a big box, which is one of the characters of the novel, full of photographs, letters, documents that the father was sending back. Out of that, she has built an incredible story of two women, also some very violent leaders of the resistance to. So they are not really, these works are not ideological. They are a kind of feminism. They imply a kind of feminism that is very, very layered with things. But anyway, Irut is a girl from the popular girl. She's the one who has the idea, the trickster, that probably the Shadow King, I won't spoil the story, but the Haile Selassie was not in Ethiopia at the time of the resistance. He was sent to England. He left the Ethiopian resistance. Irut was this incredible, fantastic girl who, throughout the novel, is only missing the rifle that her father gave her because it was taken for the resistance, but she wanted to have the rifle. She is with another woman. Again, she comes from an elite, an Ethiopian elite, but at one point you really feel that she married this leader of the resistance as a young, a baby wife. So, you know, many different stories. There is a photographer who is there to photograph the big imperial enterprise, at the same time is also receiving letters from a Jewish family in Italy undergoing the law against Jewish people in Italy. Very beautiful, very radical. If we really need to go down the surface, this is a fantastic story. The other story, which somehow, as a literary critic, somehow they really share this woman, Mengistu, and the characters start, the first introduction of the novelist now is in 74. She is bringing a box with these letters to the photographer. At the end of everything, they have become friends. And she's also saying and writing that the reason why she's taking these letters is mainly because those are the bones of the dead who require urgently to be remembered. So this sort of radical writing, rewriting of a historical event is based very much on the idea that you have to bring memory back. And you do it with the bones, which is also writing. I could not agree more with Mirella when she says art and literature, and the space for a freedom of Jasmine Ward. I don't know if you know her. She's a Black, a very influential writer from the States, coming from the south of America. She has written a wonderful trilogy based on the kind of life the Black people experience in terms of violence, in terms of growing, in terms of she has the one I really enjoy more than all the others is called Savage the Bones again. Savage the Bones is set, is the story, is 12 days before Katrina. Like, as you can imagine, had a horrific effect on the Black population in New Orleans. New Orleans comes back also in this book, but this is an historical story because she goes back to the moment of slavery. And it's again, it's a young girl experiencing the plantation, but also having an incredible link with her mother, who was a kind of witch. So she has taught the girl how to fight, very strong fights. And also the grandmother, who was the one who really experienced the Middle Passage from Africa to the States. Less beautiful in terms of writing, but very important. She, in many interviews, she also saying that she did not know much of the story on slavery, that she has learned many things, and that it took her long, very long, to try to make sense and also communicate with creative writing. Then the one, so imagine Liliana, you will meet her. Liliana is very political, you know, everything she does. So the idea that I would be talking to you about a rewriting of the Ethiopian resistance against fascism, which is what we are experiencing, and believe me, it's not a normal story. It's not, they can say whatever is new, is right, moderate, it is fascist stuff. We have a fascist government at the moment, with all the rhetoric, with all the big problems that the Italian population used to experience during the 2030s, whatever. So, you know, who could ever imagine? Liliana would say, go and tell us about this rewriting of the question. Then, of course, this was slavery. I teach post-colonial literature. Slavery is a trauma, is a mark, is the unconscious that can be really, you know, it can be approached, it needs to be approached from so many, starting from, I will quote Toni Morrison. And then the last book I will be telling you is Minor Detail. Minor Detail by Shibli, Adania Shibli, is a book that I would, how can I say, I would never, I could not read it. When I started, I felt, no, I can't carry on. They all, the three of them, the three writers, they all, especially Shibli, they say that the literature is a caress. In many interviews, she says that the only caress that she really gets when she's working is the caress that writing, that creation gives her. So, you know, but the book is stamping the minor detail of your mind, of your body. It's a terrible story divided in two parts. Of course, she's the Palestinian question. So she goes back in 47, 49, when there is a group of soldiers with a guy in charge. The guy is one of the most horrible, horrifying, disgusting monster that you can imagine, but not because he speaks. He never speaks. He doesn't, he probably twice his orders are reported by the writer, but I mean, he's only checking a kind of wood by a spider with the puss and whatever. So you never enter in touch with this guy, but you follow the minor detail of, this kind of cleaning. He knows he will be dead in a while. It's a poison wound. He will die, but doesn't stop cleaning the wound. And this would be already very much, a bit too much, but in fact, he finds a Bedouin girl, very dirty, very wild. He cleans her with petrol, and you, for 1 second, you still imagine that he will protect the girl. He lets the soldiers rape her, and of course, he rapes himself, the girl. And then the first part ends. The second part is a young girl that if you really refuse to identify with the soldier, you immediately identify with this girl because she's very, very confused. She's a mess, she doesn't know, she has ideas, she's lonely. She decides, she finds a sort of hidden reference to the story in 49. And the second part is only this girl driving in a landscape she doesn't recognize, but it keeps changing all the time, being terrorized anytime because she doesn't have the papers to go to the archives, the museums, or whatever. So anytime that she sees from the far the checkpoint, she starts sweating. The only help comes from a little girl in the desert that wants some money from her. She refuses to give money, but she gives her a chewing gum. So anytime this girl really panics, she remembers the little girl. She uses the chewing gum to start. No, sorry. So I could immediately share Biliana's decision to speak about this street. I decided that I wanted to talk about the woman partisan. It's from a book, I don't have it with me. It's a book by a Cameroonian writer who lives in the States. And it's an eco novel. Probably there is also a reason. On Thursday, I proposed a project that again probably is either this book, this novel, and also that project are making a kind of, maybe they are telling me that I'm really now thinking very much in terms of ecology, of, how we care for the land, for the earth. So you don't know, most of you don't know, but most of you know that I'm a Derridian. I studied Derrida. Derrida is my hero, yeah? Feminist, whatever. So Derrida is actually writing a book he wrote in 2006, Politics of Friendship. He's reading a very heavy, big book, not very philosophical, more philosophical. But anyway, he's reading the whole lineage of Western conceptualization of friendship. And that's what he does all the time. He doesn't speak about women, but then he has a parenthesis. Also, for example, in a wonderful piece on translation, he says, why do we always, in Italian or whatever, we always use the translator as a male figuration? What would happen if it is a she translator who comes into the picture and starts producing different translations? Here, in this big book, he It's not so much in parentheses, but I will tell you about some critique of his work. In vain would you look for a figure of a woman, a feminine silhouette, and the slightest allusion to sexual difference. All starting from Aristotle, going to Smith, all the people, all the philosophers, all the men in the Western notion of politics, when they speak of the comrade, the friend, is always male. There is no reference in the whole lineage of Western friendship when there is a woman. And I don't need to explain it further because we all know, okay? The woman is not yet fraternal enough. Of course, friendship is the political, considering fraternity, brotherhood, and justice. These are the two areas where friendship, the politics of friendship, really expresses itself. So brotherhood and fraternity and justice. The woman is not yet fraternal enough, not friend enough. She does not yet know what fraternity means. Above all, she does not know what it will and should mean. She does not understand, not yet, the fraternal promise. Woman is always higher or lower than justice, love, holiness, chivalry, magnanimity, honor, all of that she feels marvelously, below she feels more slowly. Woman is not yet capable of friendship. The woman, she's at once tyrant and slave, and this is why she still remains incapable of friendship. She knows only love. As you can see, starting from the middle of the book, then going further, he goes back all the time to this idea where what could happen if we insert the woman, the sister, the daughter, the mother into this lineage. He has been criticized, or at least for sake of, David Ventura, because I did not know while I was writing on this book, but there is a proper area of friendship studies. It is starting, it is also quite popular in the States, all over Europe. There are areas of departmental research that are devoted to friendship studies. So this one is one of the, to me, very good. The apparition of feminine alterity in Derrida's politics of friendship. He says fantastic stuff. Derrida is so strategical, useful. Is really, we need to study this book because it is really a new interpretation of friendship. But he says there are no women, and then he does not give examples of what Ventura calls the Antigones of history. He says that women are not part of this lineage, but he cannot give exact references. He kind of refers to the problem, but he doesn't propose anything. So Ventura is saying there is a reason. Derrida would say always that it's not so important in political terms, in radical political terms, if you are present. You should be present. It's the ghost, the spirit of the feminine, who is not present but keeps haunting their lineage. Ventura says, for the premise of another politics of friendship to truly become thinkable, we must also continue to devote our attention to those practices and experiences by which feminine friendship continues to be redefined today. Indeed, and particularly, if the gesture to speak of feminine specters in isolation from any reality also belongs to the follow-centric tradition, thinking and talking about how our specters relate themselves to actual practices of feminine friendships remains an absolute insurgency. So Ventura is saying, fine that whatever deconstruction does, but we need to provide incarnations of such female friends. We need to give them bodies. We need to call them back to life if they are respected. So quite critical of Derrida. But to me, How Beautiful We Were by Molo Bue is the echo novel that really devotes. I don't know if she knows, because I don't think she's a philosopher. I don't really believe that her writing or her, but I was reading it to bring the paper to Ghana, and on the question of land management, land grabbing. So I happened to find this book, this novel. And then I started noticing that every page at least has 20, 30 references to friends. Friends, friendship, friendship, friendship. My friends, the friends of the community, the enemy of the community. How Beautiful We Were is a very strong story. It's called eco novel of land grabbing and land destruction. I started from, we are here with many artists, so maybe just a little side remark on this was the original publication, the original edition of the novel, and it comes from Daniel Arsham, who is called the archaeologist of the future. He calls his work capsules of distorted time, where fragmented figurations of bodies appear precarious in structure and discrete in gesture. Lacking parts, if you go and see it from closer, they are far from being complete, as if to testify to the incompleteness of humans in time. You will see that the arms, they also refer to two characters in the book. The two arms, they hold hands in hands, but they are missing parts. This sculpture is holding a hands crystal. This is the situation of the fictional village, Kosawa, where it is everywhere in Africa. Sibling cousins and friends are dying from a disease without name and cure. Something poisonous was entering their stomach. The land has lost its purity. Toxic waste is dumped into the river. Water must be boiled. Fear is great, in and out all day long. I could not really go into data, but whoever, if you are interested, internet really provides all possible data on the exploitation of the African land as the most violent representation of colonial times. They go, they exploit the land, they kill the kids, they poison everything. Water must be boiled. The whole question at one point, the village starts understanding that the real problem why these kids are dying one after the other and nobody can do anything is because of water. And the workers for the global firm, they have doctors. The village the only thing is to boil water, but the kids, the most vulnerable ones, die anyway. So this is the very beginning. We should have known, this is the children who are a character, it's like a chorus. The story starts with chapter 1, then it goes to the woman partisan, and then immediately she's narrated only through the stories of the members of her family, and the chorus is the children. They stay the children until the very end. We should have known the end was near. How could we not have known? When the sky began to pour acid and rivers began to turn green, we should have known our land would soon be dead. Then again, how could we have known that they did not want us to know? When we began to wobble and stagger, tumbling and snapping like feeble little branches, they told us it would soon be over, that we would all be well in no time. They asked us to come to village meetings to talk about it. They told us we had to trust them. The whole rhetoric of friendship, they are our friends. The corrupted local authority is all the time saying we should be so good because they are helping us. They are our friends. We should have spat in their faces, heaped upon them names most befitting: liars, savages, unscrupulous, evil. We should have cursed their mothers and their grandmothers, flung pejoratives upon their fathers, prayed for unspeakable calamities to befall their children. We hated them and we hated their meetings, but we attended all of them. Every 8 weeks, we went to the village square to listen to them. We were dying. We were helpless. We were afraid. Those meetings were our only chance at salvation. I can't really tell you that the spark that actually, these are two very mirroring parts. We should have known, and we should have done something, not if we had known. The writer says that you need to be mad to be able to intervene in this story. That you have the strength of probably doing something different only if there is an element of madness in you. So it is actually the madman of the village, the one nobody would expect because he's always in his mind, talking to the sky, having invisible friends. They come to him, they visit him, and they tell him that now it is high time this stops. So he takes the keys to the car of the representative of the oil firm and doesn't want to give the cars back, the key of the car back. So somehow the village is obliged to keep these people captive in the village. Then the story goes that one of these people gets really ill because of the water that's killing the kids of the village, and he dies. At that point, the local authorities, the global starts worrying. They send soldiers, and they act out a massacre of the village. I'm putting the Italian too long. What disappears in becoming indiscernible in the middle of the desert is the woman or the sister, not even a mirage, nothing. Desert and absolute silence, you would see. Not even a woman soldier, not even in the theory of the partisan is there the least reference to the role played by women in guerrilla warfare, in the wars and the aftermath of wars on national liberation. In Algeria today, for example, for another liberation, since Smith speaks of the Algeria of Salah. Never a word for the action of women in resistance movement. Smith is then more eloquent, let it be said in passing, when he evokes the resistance against the Neapolitan Empire, against French imperialism in general. And he remains so discreet on the subject of those women with whom the Nazi occupation forces encountered not so long ago. They could nevertheless have provided him with interesting examples at the time of the theory of the partisan. This is Bue. When I was a girl, I had a t-shirt with the image of a murdered revolutionary named Thomas Sankara. Everywhere I went, people would stop me to ooh-ah at his image and pretty much worship him. I also remember when Nelson Mandela was in prison. We had pop songs in Cameroon calling for his release. Any child on the street could give you a rundown of what was happening in South Africa. I believe growing up in such a culture really forged in me a great deal of awe for people who dare. This is where Tula and other audacious characters come from. The main difference between Tula and the celebrated revolutionaries of my childhood is that they were men and she isn't. It took me a very long time to ask the question, what about the women? Well, Tula is fantastic. At one point, the narrative says, in the days to come, the world will function the way women want it to. Oh yeah, but it's very, could I make it a bit bigger? No?
Yes, but we will have to edit the presentation.
Yeah, I will, maybe I will just read the quotation. Because actually the novel is very much all based on Tula, but Tula is not only similar to the village. She's also very singularly different from the village, and this is Derrida. The recognition of the friend as the other. Derrida says we can always be singular and we must remain so in a certain way, comes with what remains irreducible to any established concept, code, system of generality, but which nevertheless marks itself by the promise of its repeatability. Here, Tula's singularity is associated to the promise of a democracy to come, which becomes the political focus of her future activist engagement. As Derrida suggests, on the other hand, you have to reconcile this demand for equality with demand for singularity, with respect for the other as singular, and it is an aporia. How can we at the same time take into account the equality of everyone, justice and equity, and nevertheless take into account and respect the heterogeneous singularity of everyone? Well, actually, Tula is intense, determined, indomitable, unwavering, fearless, gifted with the fortitude of the sun, smiling and attentive. Tula's special trait lies in silence. I never found the need to use words unless I must. Spending time alone in her head, she prefers listening because words cannot translate what she feels and thinks. And reading. Three are the books that she considers her real friends. One is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, and the Wretch of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. This is the way here, is the way she says that probably the prose of Frantz Fanon could have helped expressing the massacre. When the guy dies, there was bloodbath, arrest, execution, and then the massacre. How fast those bullets came, how we stumbled, how we staggered, how we cried, fleeing to the forest, how heavy the blood flowed, the blood of our families, the blood of our friends. Why do we hope on when life has revealed itself to be meaningless? Tula, there is a journalist, a young American journalist who reports the massacre to the States. Civil America sends a group of restoration, it's called the Restoration Movement, and they start investigating the massacre, trying to ask for compensation for the village, but especially wanting to take the very bright kids from the village to the States to study. And Tula, who is so bright and so intelligent, she goes and studies in New York. And at the village, she starts meeting all the global movements, collaborating on the idea that it's not only Africa, it's South America, all over the world, there are populations who need to fight for the respect of the sacred land. I think of the millions of children who are drawn every year, of the nearly 50% of women who are beaten or fall victim to sometimes murderous abuse, the 60 million disappeared women, the 30 million mutilated women, of the 23 million infected with AIDS, of which 90% are in Africa, and to whom the budget of AIDS research dedicates only 5% of its resources, while therapy remains unavailable outside small Occidental milieux. I think of the selective infanticide of girls in India and of the monstrous conditions of child labor in many countries, and of the fact that there are, I believe, 1 million illiterate people and 140 million uneducated children. I think of the maintenance of the death penalty and of the circumstances of its administration in the United States, the only Western democracy to do so, and a country that no longer recognizes the Convention concerning Children's Rights and continues to execute punishment against minors even after they have reached adult age. I quote these numbers published in official reports from memory in order to convey an idea of the scale of the problems that call for an international solidarity of which no state, no party, no syndicate, no civic organization really takes care. All who suffer and all those who are not insensitive to the dimension of these urgent issues belong to this international. Everybody who, civic or national background notwithstanding, is determined to draw the attention of politics, law, and ethics towards them. Actually, this kind of new international is what Tula does into the novel. She learns a lot, she studies because she's really in love with knowledge, and she goes back after many years, and she really cannot help by witnessing her friends getting really totally how can I say, they have no other alternative but turning into acts of rebellion, attacking the firm's property, setting fires, damaging pipes. She doesn't agree with that. She comes from a tradition that doesn't really share eco-terrorism. So Air Force and their political knowledge calls for a democratic revolution. The movement to bring down His Excellency's government is the local authority who is totally on the side of the firm. The Liberation Day that will rise the phoenix from the ashes of history. This land is our land, rowers. We'll take it back, whether they like it or not, rowers. Will no longer be slaughtered, poisoned, and trampled upon rowers. Let those who stand in the way of our peace and happiness be warned. We will clench our fists, we will roar until they give us back our dignity. Our voices will be the fire that will burn down every system of injustice, and from the ashes we will build a new nation. Indeed, the revolution. Yeah, I should have told you that Partisan Tula was created really with the writer reading Nelson Mandela, Stephen Biko, Lumumba, Sankara, Martin Luther King, a very long list of biographies. She really devotes herself completely to the organization of this Liberation Day, but yeah, they describe her as a dove forging through a fire, burning yet soaring. Look at what a woman can do. And she's able to convince her people and many other peoples from the villages nearby to take part to the revolution. Possibility was written on the faces of the multitude, an unguarded anticipation of the future. In fact, yeah, the revolution does not liberate anybody. The villagers lose all the trials, even with the best lawyers against the oil company. So the end is quite terrible. Tula decides to start financing the armed battle, fight, but once again, her friends are killed because of these acts of violence, and she disappears. Nobody really knows where she is, what has happened to her. So I think it somehow reminds this kind of a bleak end of the novel, resounds with what Arundhati Roy says in The End of Imagination. Our cities and forests, our fields and villages will burn for days. Kosawa, the fictional village, is burned out by the government. Rivers will turn to poison. The air will become fire. The wind will spread the flames. When everything there is to burn has burned and the fires die, smoke will rise and shut out the sun. What shall we do then, those of us who are still alive, burned and blind, and bold and ill, carrying the conscious carcasses of our children in our arms? Where shall we go? What shall we eat? Well, what shall we drink? What shall we breathe? Indeed, Bue, who somehow, I'm not sure whether she's also religious or something like that, but she would reply to Roy saying, no, 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 no. All form against all annihilation and despair, even losing a battle, can lay the ground for future movements. There is a nobility, she says, in the idea that you carry it this far and the next generation carries it forward. So actually, the end of How Beautiful We Were, the very last stage, we have planted seeds in the minds. The seeds are bound to germinate and spread. So this end echoes with the promise of a democracy to come, which asserts the right to hope. Probably we won't uh, realize the promise, we won't have a revolutionary democracy in the future, but this is nonetheless the right to hope. Victory will one day come. In the time this distance is from the utopia, the afterlife of the friends of the African land keeps filled in the narration of this story to the ones gifted with imagination of the future otherwise. This was Toni Morrison's Beloved. It was not a story to pass on. It was not a story to pass on. This is not a story to pass on. That doesn't mean stop witnessing. It means that the horror of the story narrated in Beloved should not happen again. How beautiful to we were, and with this story must be told. It might not feel good to all ears. It gives our mouth no joy to say it, but our story cannot be left untold. The children of our children come to us and say, please, yeah, please, big Papa, tell us a story. Yes.